women and men should think whom they are voting for leader, because the vision of leader can be very important value in making changes we need and we want to achieve.
Hi, I'm Satya Tripathi, United Nations Assistant Secretary General, and you're listening to the ETHS Show.
Welcome to that show, a podcast where I sit with some amazing personalities from across sectors and borders to have meaningful conversation on topics that matters to us.
My guest for the day is someone who has long-standing career as a leader, politician, diplomat, and peace negotiator, and is known as one of key protagonists of political changes since the end of Cold War. She has a vast experience in foreign policy and security, international relations, conflict resolution, international peace negotiations, post-conflict transitions, peace building, women empowerment, and WPS agenda. She is a graduate of Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government and is a key founder and leader of the Movement for Independence and was 10 years Minister of Foreign Affairs in hard times during liberation of her country and 5 terms Member of Parliament and has served her country in various capacities and is the former Deputy Prime Minister of this beautiful European country, the Republic of Kosovo. She is Dr. Edita Tahiri.
Hi Adita, welcome on the show.
Hello, Himanshu. Thank you for having me here.
Adita, what I have seen when you were, representing Kosovo as Deputy Prime Minister, and till today, that you have been very active when it comes to uh, gender equality or reducing inequalities, not just in Kosovo, but wherever you get the opportunity to. Keeping the same in mind, when I was going through the recent data, and I found that on one of the UN websites, it's clearly mentioned that at the pace with which we are working to eliminate gender disparity or gender gap, it will still take us 108 more years to reduce gender inequality. How do you see that?
Well, first, let me say that my focus on gender equality is part of my political agenda
Hmm.
in all these 3 decades of my career. However, the first decade I was focused in achieving independence and freedom for my country, Kosovo.
Hmm.
And after the war, I had more time to really work for fighting inequalities, and major one to be the gender discrimination.
Hmm.
If we see the 20 years since the adoption of the groundbreaking Resolution 1325 by the United
Hmm.
Nations Security Council, of course, I acknowledge achievements in different areas and in different levels. However, we are far from coming to the reality of full gender equality between women and men.
Hmm.
And this especially includes the areas of politics, decision making, and formal peace processes. So I think that women are still far from reaching decision making and to be able to decide together with men for important decisions in national, regional, or international level in order to build a just, prosperous, and peaceful future. So, in the future, and I hope it's not going to be 100 years, because I believe in the woman's potentials. It's a strategic asset for the world, as woman is half of human capital. Its interest, strategic interest, to empower women, so to have woman as a factor, new factor in the paradigm of development, prosperity, and democracy in the world. That's why I believe, and we should work all together to really find a way to accelerate this process and shorten the road to gender equality.
Have also seen that there are only 6 countries in the world wherein we can see that women are giving equal opportunities and equal wages even in the mainstream. But it is hard to understand that why women are being left out when it comes to giving them equal treatment. And when we talk about gender, we are not just focusing on the issues between men and women. We are also talking about the third gender, which is completely neglected. How do you see the third gender coming in picture, and how do you see women getting equal rights in the days to come?
My views that I am uh, clearly highlighting in whatever international fora is that we have to invest to empower women in politics, because by investing in women in politics we can have women elected and climbing up to governance, to parliaments. And once you are in government, then you are there as woman to shape and decide national policies which should be gender inclusive and which should, of course, give equal space to women in all governance issues, including public administration. And this also goes to international levels, because once women are empowered and have legitimacy politically, they can even assume high positions in international organizations. In this regard, I have seen some encouraging developments, like there are some women who lead now international organizations, including presidents of the states or prime ministers. However, we have to work to change the mindset. Still, the mindset in politics is men dominated mindset, meaning that decision making is being perceived as only space for men. There are successes like in Kosovo or in the Western Balkans that we through through quota as an artificial mechanism we brought women to parliament. So there is in Kosovo and throughout the region over 30% are women in parliament. However, when speaking for government, there is no quota and there is no empowered woman in politics, so to gain votes through voting system. These are for me the main gaps. Of course, there is also economic aspect, because empowerment of women economically make them players also politics. So we have to look at the inroads which are not explored enough, so to see how we can speed up the process of gender equality, which starts from decision making.
One thing which you have rightly pointed out, that women who are in power are actually shaping the future. So even if we see the current prime ministers, women prime ministers in different countries, the way they have battled with COVID-19 and the way other countries have fought with COVID-19 actually speaks about itself. How women are much more capable of fighting even the calamities or the epidemics like COVID-19. At the same time, one thing which I also understand is that when we talk about empowerment or gender equality, then this is not just about giving all the genders equal weightage, but it is also about understanding that when we talk about empowering women, because if women is empowered, then the entire family is empowered. If women is empowered, then we can eliminate hunger, we can eliminate poverty. If women is empowered, then we can make sure that we have 100% literacy rate, so on and so forth. But these things are being completely neglected because we are not focusing on much on gender equality, rather we are focusing on independent issues. Do you feel or do you see that if we will spend more time and more energy and focus on bridging the gender gap, then most likely we will also eliminate the other disparities that we have in our society?
First, would like to say that the pandemic we are going through has highlighted not only
Mhm.
capacities of women leaders to cope with the pandemic and its consequences, maybe in a quite excellent way, which was seen. However, we also have seen that pandemic once again showed the fragility of the woman's position because this pandemic has been worsened the
Mhm.
gender discrimination and especially the domestic violence has been increased and women lost jobs because economies were affected by pandemics. So this is one more warning for entire world to invest in gender equality. And if we want to analyze it in a terms that if gender gap is removed, then we can see better future. Of course, this is one of the central issues, but it is not the only one because there are also other gaps in the world which relates to general inequalities or to marginalized groups in the society. So it's not only gender, but also it has other backgrounds as well. Personally, think that women really can be agents of change and are agents of change. This was also demonstrated in Kosovo. Personally, I hope you know my history. Personally, I was one of the founders of the movement of independence, a leader, and found one of the founders of the state of Kosovo as woman. I was then foreign minister of Kosovo as woman in 10 years of occupation, which was very difficult to have access to the world diplomacy, and that was my job to do so to make them aware about root causes of Kosovo's question and why independence is legitimate and legal right of Kosovo. Then I was negotiator, woman negotiator, and I was appointed in these positions because I had political uh, agency, so involved in politics, went through the legitimate say it selections, votings, and also became chief negotiator 7 years for the negotiations between Kosovo and our former enemy Serbia in efforts to normalize post-war relations and establish peaceful chapter between two parties. So this tells that women really should work more for the women agenda, but also include partnership with men because this issue has to be resolved or this gap has to be filled in with joint and partnership between women and men. In other terms, men should look at women's capacities in strategic way. It's like if woman is discriminated, half of the world population is not activated for the better future. So it's very strategic really to consider women's empowerment as a strategic direction in our global efforts for improving and creating a better world.
Adita, don't you feel that the term that we are using, women empowerment, instead of this, we should be using a terminology which is men empowerment? This is the time when we actually need to empower men about giving equal rights to women.
Well, perhaps the notion empowerment is not the best one because because men might abuse with it to empower more themselves for in decision making on politics. Perhaps I think raising awareness for democracy, for just society among men, and also raising awareness or maybe breaking the prejudices of men that the power only belongs
Mhm.
to men are better approaches because I believe that this is about power
Mhm.
balance. So here, gender equality is about equality of sharing power in decision making and in politics. And that is the if we want to define the issue, this is the problem:
Mhm.
how to achieve equal power sharing between women and men in decision making.
When we talk about environmental sustainability, or when we talk about uh, other issues which are directly connected with sustainable development goals, we have seen that there are two major factors. I mean, this is my personal belief. I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. That if, as any nation or as a society as a whole, if we will only focus on these two issues, then other issues pertaining to sustainable development goals will automatically fall in place. And these two issues are bridging the gender gap first, and second, eliminating poverty or reducing inequalities.
Yeah, these are two very important issues that the world is facing with. However, along with these two major problems, we have also a problem of the lacking of trust in the world, which produces conflicts. Then we have the revisiting of the geopolitical ambitions of the world. Then we have the issue of climate change. So I think we are facing more complex agenda than only these two you mentioned, and I believe that we should have the approach that is inclusive to the major problems of the world,
Mhm.
and try to build the strategy of addressing all that I listed and are also listed by United Nations as major problems of the world. World is also full of conflicts and wars, and I am happy to see women contributing for conflict resolution, for reaching peace agreements, helping on the ground in humanitarian and social sense. I personally believe that we should also work in revising the concept or revising the understanding of the concept of war and security and concept of peace, because for men see peace mostly as end of the war, end of the violence. However, women see peace also including peace at home, meaning having a better life, having human security. So we have to gender peace and to gender security in definitions, in say scientific definitions, in legal definitions, in understanding politically why we should perceive peace in more expanded definition,
Mhm.
and that expanded definition shows complementarity between men and women's views for peace. So this is, I think, also the level where we should work. It's essential to conceptually redefine peace and redefine security.
Right. But don't you feel that even if we have to make political changes or bureaucratic or diplomatic changes in our society, then for that, the first step is to empower our youth with the right education and right mindset.
I
And then only we'll be able to achieve what you are trying to achieve by making political amends.
I think that investing in youth is also strategic as investing in women and in young women or girls. These both agendas, women peace and security agenda and youth and peace and security agenda, are on the table. There are a lot of commitments. However, it's not enough to have commitments. There should be implementation of these agendas, and implementation doesn't come by itself. There should be a political will to implement these both agendas, one for youth, the other for women, and also to provide sufficient financial support for implementation. So two are key: political will among the world leaders and country leaders and governments, and financing the implementation of both agendas. I want to add once more to implement, but also to speed up implement. In the beginning of our talk, you mentioned another 100 years as possibility to come to the equality. If it should not be delayed, sooner better for peace and freedom.
And when we talk about poverty or hunger, UN women
Yes, please.
statistics clearly mention that it is estimated that 60% of chronically hunger people are women and girls, right? Now, when we are talking about, on one end, empowering them so that they can have a seat on the table, and on the second side, we have women who are living in poverty and hunger. How do you see them having a seat on the table when they are still struggling for their bread and butter?
Well, I believe that practically the positions in parliament or government are always limited, and there is sufficient women who can fill that places with their
Mhm.
capacities and with their vision. So I believe that to put them in those places.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please.
What I was saying is that I was not just talking about parliament, because parliament is one place wherein now women have got access, right? But when we talk about giving them seat at the table, it is not just about parliament. It is also about equality, right? It is also about understanding that uh, they are living equally better life like men. They
Well,
have food on the table. They have healthy lifestyle on the table. They have all the resources that they need to grow at the table, and then only they will be able to reach up to a level wherein they can have a seat at the parliament, isn't it?
yeah, let me say as follows. One way of quick equality in decision making can be achieved by adopting quota for governments, quota of gender equality for governments, quota for gender equality in formal peace processes in the tables where peace is negotiated and decided. The other way is investing to empower women politically, so to be able to have them decide and shape the gender inclusive national policies, which would also be providing solutions to remove the poverty which is more affecting women than men, and also opening the opportunities for jobs for women, equality in employment, then supporting entrepreneurship of women in private sector. So really to have a plan, strategic plan that would target women and reduce the poverty in terms that big changes come when all society lives in good conditions and in inequality.
And how do you see government making these kind of decisions which are healthier for the society?
Well, first of all, depends on the capacity of leadership of government, because
Mhm.
the issue of better life and equality is not only something written in the laws and papers. It's about who is elected to be leader, because individual leadership plays a very important role in for the better changes. So by saying that, I am giving message that also citizens, uh, women and men, should think whom they are voting for leader, because the vision of leader can be very important value in making changes we need and we want to achieve. So this is, as we say, more complex. It's not only about norms and laws. It's also about leadership. And here, I think that we should also invest for leadership of women. Investment comes through different kind of support, not only education for leadership, but also allowing them to have opportunities to exercise leadership in different areas, so to be able to grow in the country's leadership or in big economic companies leadership in other sectors. So I would add the value of leadership as very important for achieving changes we need.
Right. And Edita, since you have worked across length and breadth of Kosovo, what is the difference that you see in women who are living in urban area as well as who are living in villages?
Well, first to tell you that Kosovo women, Albanians, have played a vital role in liberation and independence of Kosovo, and are playing vital role in uh, democracy uh, building, in peace building, in prosperity of Kosovo. Women are very vibrant, very active, very much encouraged, and that's why after the war, Kosovo was the first to establish quota in parliament. Then the other countries in the region followed this good model. So Kosovo women has really important historic achievements in political, but also in gender equality issues. About the difference between rural and urban women, of course, rural women are much more discriminated, and there should be investments to improve the life of rural women, not only in terms of gender equality, but also in terms of well-being and in terms of providing them more opportunities, so to be able to accomplish their goals, their family and their community goals. So I believe that every country, every nation should think more about rural women and in general the situation in rural areas.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely right. And when we were talking about your work in last 3 decades in women development or gender inequality space, what were the kind of experiences that you have had which have kind of impacted your life, and through which you want to maybe share a message with women that how they should come forward and how they should be a role model for others as well.
A very good question. First, let me say that during the occupation, when situation was very tragic and our people were being killed, exterminated, uh, we didn't have time for gender equality, but neither for gender discrimination. We were all united, men and women, to reach the goal of freedom. So, during the occupation and during difficulties, you don't see much of this gender discrimination issue. However, what happened in Kosovo, and I have been reading also in other post conflict countries, after war ends, discrimination comes to the agenda. It happened also in Kosovo. So the war ended, and the men in somehow occupied the political and decision making spaces. It was surprising, but it happened. And that was when we, women leaders of war times, stood up, uh, joined by civil society women leaders, created the coalition in post war Kosovo, and in our actions, we convinced men leaders to establish quota. This is the first year after the war we established 30% of quota, because we didn't want it that our historic contribution for liberation be undermined and not recognized. Or we didn't want it to be only players in difficult times, so we wanted to be players also in peace times, So this happens in aftermath of conflict. Discrimination comes back. And my message to women, and especially to women which are in the conflict areas, should be that no change come by itself. We have to be the ones who engage in bringing change. And that's why my call for women is that be active, be involved to resolve difficult issues for your society or for your country, which then brings you legitimacy to not be anymore, say it, excluded. So it's very much on women to take the situation in its hand, be encouraged, be courageous, and be visionary to work for common interest, but also to work for women interest.
And Adita, what was the? I'm sure during all these years of your work, you might have had many inspirational encounters with women and during your process. Can you share some of the or any of the inspirational encounter that you have had with people while you were working with bridging gender gaps?
After the war, uh, I have been elected mayor of Pristina, but this was immediately after the war. Mayor until the first elections happened. And that was more like political agreement of political parties. However, because one party rejected my leadership as mayor, although I was voted with majority, the United Nations presence in Kosovo at the time, United Nations administration, interim administration, did not recognize the result. Then women stood up with heavy critics towards the chief of UNMIK is called the mission. It was Mr. Bernard Kouchner. So he daily would face different protests by women because he didn't accept the results of majority that voted a woman. And then he approached me one day and said how I can fix this because I really cannot anymore stand there every morning to be in the media criticized for gender. So I said, you first should not have done it because you not only discriminated uh, by gender, but also you undermine democracy because this was voting. It was not election. It was say political parties voted. Council of political parties in
Hmm.
Pristina, in capital. And not that I was interested to become a mayor because I was always a leader at national level, but it was just to help nation overcome these first days of after war. And then
Hmm.
I told him, well, you let's try something. Let me tell you, I said, let's work together as you are here international administration and we have national leadership. Let's try together to adopt quota in parliament. As you have a lot of power in Kosovo. And then I will speak to my colleagues, leaders, because I was coming from the movement, peaceful movement, which was very strong. And then there was another movement of armed resistance. And I knew all of them as we cooperated in the peace processes like Rambouillet and in post-war. So I had good, say it, cooperation and respect from them, being in that difficult responsibilities in liberation process. And he agreed, Mr. Kushner. How we did, we launched an international conference in Kosovo. We spoke to leaders of political parties. He, as a chief of UN in Kosovo, gave his support. And through international conference, we discussed with, say it, inclusive presence of women in that conference from politics and civil society about women's ideas in terms of gender equality. Two ideas came. One was quota, another was creating Ministry of Gender Equality. So what got more support was quota. The conclusions of that conference were shared with national leaders of political parties. They were ready. That is how we changed the electoral system to include 30% women candidates, and it was quota who would bring them to parliament. So, what is my point to say? This is how women can be active. I just told one example how we were active from one discrimination to reach one good result, and that was quota, which is still today in Kosovo 30% parliament after 20 years.
Right. Well, this is great that how vast majority of women stood together to fight for quota. And how do you see the time has changed after independence, post independence, after you first introduced quota, uh, with all your struggles and all your hard work? Do you see any changes happening when it comes to bridging gender gap in Kosovo, or do
Yeah.
you feel that this is still the same?
Within 20 years, I think we women have been very active and can be also lessons learned for other women. We were very smart to create coalitions between women in politics and civil society. So my message is very important to have cooperation between women in politics and civil society and not to create a rivalry, because these coalitions are very effective in achieving change. Through these coalitions that we were part of it, and especially us who were top leaders, women in the country, we succeeded soon to adopt the law on gender equality in parliament. Then we adopted implementation plans. We adopted the national action plans, and we worked for gender mainstreaming in budget. Also, today in Kosovo's public administration, over 30% are women. However, what is lacking is still the leadership in the departments of ministries are still dominated with men, and we work for that changes. Like we work to somehow uh, have more women in government, because within 20 years it was not stable inclusion of women in government. Sometimes we had more ministers, sometimes less. So we are now working to find a way to have more sustainable inclusion of women in governance, and increasing the woman number in directorates in different ministries. So this is our strategy. We also achieved to convince government to give 50%, 50% of budget
Mhm,
for implementation of the National Action Plan, which derives from the resolution
mhm,
1325.
mhm. Well, other than supporting women in leadership, you have also supported women with
Of
entrepreneurship.
course, there are
So
investments.
can you please,
Yes, please tell me.
right. So I actually wanted to ask about that. So can you please share how women have gotten into entrepreneurship, and how through entrepreneurship they are now building their lives or changing the life of the entire country?
I believe that this process has come first as initiatives of women individuals who had skills for economy and entrepreneurship. So, through this individual empowerment, then they created the economic forum of women, which became one non-governmental actor that works with government and international community to empower women economically. Not that much we could achieve, but it's important that we establish mechanisms, and the path to power for women in economic terms has positive trend.
So, when can we see a women prime minister in Kosovo?
Well, we had the president woman in Kosovo.
No, we already have a president woman in Kosovo. Yes,
Ca- We have currently Speaker of Parliament is woman and is acting
right,
president.
right, right,
I hope in the future we will see also women prime
right.
minister. But we have deputy prime ministers,
Yes.
ministers. As I said, peace negotiators. Kosovo is the only country in the
Mhm,
Balkans who had woman peace negotiator in the international peace processes, and that was
mhm,
me. So the only woman in the Balkans who participated in the peace talks to end wars was
right.
me. In the delegation of Kosovo in the Rambouillet conference, where 14 were men and only I was a woman. But it was also indicator that how women were not included in the peace processes, formal peace processes in the Balkans. There was another woman in Croatia who was also negotiator in the process that was intrastate process of negotiations between government of Croatia and a minority there. However, I participated in international peace processes to end war and to make peace for my country. So Kosovo gave good examples, I would say. It should give more, and not only Kosovo, all over in the world, we should see equal participation of women in formal negotiating table.
Right. So, Adita, when you deal with a men-dominated society, or when you deal with examples that you just quoted, that amongst 40 men, you were the only women. So, when you deal with a men-dominated society, what are some of the challenges that you go through personally at personal level?
Again, to go back, when nation is in danger, when you have occupier who is killing your people, who is exerting genocide against your people, there is no space for gender discrimination. We were all united to achieve a goal of freedom and independence. So I think there was no space to think
Right.
about gender issues. My experience was that because being from the first days of liberation process as a founder, as one of the key leaders, did not feel such discrimination. However, I explained to you earlier, after war, the gender discrimination and men dominated mentality was uh, returning
Right.
as a negative phenomenon.
So how did you face some of the challenges, if you can share some of your experiences, maybe in last 10 years or 5 years? So how it has changed since the time you fought for 30% stake in the government jobs.
Well, let me first say that because I was already a legitimate leader with
Mhm,
legitimacy of my contribution for liberation, and
mhm.
that made me voted politician. So I do not fall in the category of those women who have to fight for legitimacy. I already created legitimacy, which was also translating in vote. So
Right.
my situation is more unique. In common, women have no chance to take high state responsibilities and to create legitimacy, which then translates in vote and support. That's why I am
Mhm.
talking about giving space to women to be
Right.
players. They show their values and capacities, and then later it translates to the uh, legitimacy and being supported and voted.
And I'm sure with leaders like yours, we will soon see equality or equal opportunities in Kosovo, or maybe in the entire Balkan.
I hope so. I am working a lot because I am also the leader of the regional women's lobby in past 14 years, and our membership is women from politics and civil society, are women leaders which have history in liberations of their countries. So we found, say, democratic force to come together, although past was quite tragic because they were from different parts of history. However, we succeeded to build common agenda for future, and our agenda is to have Balkans be integrated in Euro-Atlantic community, in European Union, NATO, to implement Euro-Atlantic values at home in the Balkans, to prevent influences of non-Western countries such as Russia and others. So this vision keeps us together, and through this political vision, we work for gender equality. And networking and regional cooperation is also a very important mechanism for helping speed up our agenda for reform.
And what is the one message that you want to give to women leader around the world?
Well, my message is that women leaders should excel, should be good leaders in making change for common goals, and within that efforts for change, they should not forget gender equality issues, because there are experiences that when women climb up in politics and decision making, they tend to forget or ignore gender equality issues. I think we women should work for both, for common interest, and also include women agenda in that common agenda. That's very important.
Right. And with this, I think it's time to say goodbye to you, Adita. It was pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Himanshu, and I also was pleased to be talking to you. I wish you great success, and thank you for supporting gender equality, given that you come from the man world that I was today, of course, trying to raise awareness for more, more, say it, gender
Thank you.
sensitive men mindset.
Thank you for listening to The Ed Show. You can now listen to the same podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts, or you can watch it live on YouTube. And I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, stay safe and stay happy.